'Twas a late March afternoon in 2025. The overcast sky spat hints of a forthcoming downpour. Strong gusts occasionally brushed the leafless branches of the old trees ringing the cemetery. With a mocking lilt, a crow cackled relentlessly in the distance throughout the service. Bartholomew Batts Alexander Sterling VII's casket was slowly, reverently lowered into the grave. It was a funeral befitting a, if not the, most noble graduate of the Elysian Academy of Statesmanship. Bartholomew Alexander Sterling I founded it, built it, and cultured it. The Academy had passed through generations of Sterlings to finally come into Batts' possession, and he was now dead. The service was strictly ecumenical. Virgil Higgins, class of 72, and the Archbishop of Camelot welcomed the attendees. Arthur Tubbins Hemsworth, class of 68, and the Canon of Westerbury led the prayers. Horatio Rory of Ruritania, and a close friend of the deceased, recited the appropriate scripture. Eulogies were solemnly spoken. The Venerable Senator Philip Kent, class of 69, spoke of young Batts' love of football. Retired Federal Court of Appeal Judge Blaise Cuthbert, class of 71, recounted 25 years old Batts' initial fruitful forays into business. Professor Eldon von Schaufhausen III, class of 70, drew the biggest laughs as he told of Batts' cunning mind, manipulations, and ensuing billions during the recessions of 1980-82, 1990-91, 2001, 2007, 09, and most recently 2020, the COVID recession. And laugh the thousands of attendees did. They were all Elysian men, graduates and current students of the finest academy for the American male pedigree. To their core, they were outstandingly self-assured, unimaginably wealthy, subtly influential, and absolutely disdainful of anything modern. No one but Elysian men attended the funeral. No women, no people of colour, no non-Christians, no socialists, no sexual deviants, just Elysian men. This was very much the meaning of strictly ecumenical to the Elysian mindset. The service over, the rain starting, and the wind picking up, the attendees withdrew in their respective limousines to their respective gatherings to respectfully remember Batts, to trade insider information of various kinds, and to lift their tumblers once again and repeat the Academy toast. To more of us and less of them. 000. If I may, there may be a problem ensuant to Batts' death that we inexplicably did not expect, offered Sheldon Swinton, class of 84, and the Academy's current headmaster. Nonsense, old boy, snorted Humphrey Pendergast II, class of 67, and CEO of Global Investments. Elysians never have a problem. The other moneyed graduates chuckled their agreement and sipped their cognac. Sheldon deferentially nodded his head and tightly smiled. That's true, sir. Yet I regret to advise that it is possible that, just say it, old boy, said one alumnus. And don't ever say, said another. What sort of headmaster says, scoffed a third. Sheldon drew a deep breath and glanced around the oak-panelled room. In any other context, his confidence in his Elysian peers and friends to swiftly and sagely advise him how to best to overcome or smother any difficulty was not misplaced. After all, his worries were relatively trivial, in contrast to his fellow alumni in governments and managing global finances. But this time, very well, and I will appreciate your various insights in this regard then, Sheldon began. I was discussing Batts' death 3 days ago with Tom Pickering, and he, Thomas Fairfield Pickering? Good man. 92, isn't he? Interjected Archibald Langley, class of 79. I've known him since he was a child. Duke Pickering of 66 married my niece, Wilbur Pierpoint Maxwell, class of 75, comfortably remarked. Yes, sir. Tom is from the class of 92 and is now a partner at Dewey, Cheatham and Howe. Sheldon drew another deep breath. Regardless, he informed me of Batts' will. So? Offered Percival Lysander, class of 89. The other alumni looked at each other quizzically. Of course Thomas did that. There was nothing improper in divulging the contents of an Elysian man's will to his fellow Elysians before any beneficiaries knew of its gifts. Indeed, it was expected. Well, sir, as we have come to accept as a truism, all Elysians bequeath some of their estate to their survivors, and the vast majority of it to the Elysian Heritage Fund. A few shoulders shrugged. Some men nodded. The fund served the hidden hand by which Elysian alumni exercised global control. That many in world believed the Jews did so constituted one of the Elysians' most efficacious disinformation campaigns. Batts died alone in Monaco, divorced 4 times, Everything should be going to the fund, snorted Remington Royson, class of 88. Sheldon looked Remington in the eye. Sheldon slowly cast his gaze upon the other cognaces, his friends, his peers, his fellow alumni. Sheldon stood, picked up his cognac, and gulped it. Sir, I'm always loath to come to contradiction with you, yet Tom informs that it seems Bats was divorced 3 times and separated once. Silence. He never divorced his last wife, sir, Sheldon grimly announced. The implications hit the room like a nuclear bomb. What's in Bat's will? Preston Winslow II, class of 81, hoarsely asked. The problem Thomas Fairfield Pickering, class of 92, stood by the head of the table in the oak-panelled conference room of Dewey, Cheetham and Howe. Cedric Anthony Dickens, class of 02, and Winston Buttersworth Jones, class of 07, stood to his left and right respectively. They faced the boards of governors of both the fund and the academy. Thomas provided the opening remarks, my friends. It was my wish that we assemble today to review the relevant elements of Bats's will. He smiled. I'm pleased to announce to you that Bats executed his final Elysian duty and bequeathed the bulk of his estate to our fund. It may interest you to know that the sum in question is, he paused for dramatic effect, $7.8 billion. A sigh of relief swept the room. Smiling faces replaced grim ones. Life was unfolding as it always had, always should, and always would, in the Elysians' favour. I shall now ask Cedric and Winston to elaborate upon some of the finer and more unexpected details of Bat's legacy. He gestured to the younger men. Both of them calmly took centre stage. Inwardly, they were nervous wrecks. Gentlemen, Cedric began, it may be helpful were I to briefly remind you of Bats's marital history. He graduated in 1972 and married Constance Buckingham of the Buckinghams of Hampton. Various men nodded. They divorced in 1976 after the Montreal Olympics, at which Bats found her in flagrante delicto with a member of the Italian soccer team. There were more nods. Many elders fondly remembered Constance, her fine fellatio, and Bats's utter ignorance. Bats and Constance had no children. She passed away at a convent in 1991. Bats then wooed, and in 1978, wed Eunice Tinsley Carrington. Theirs was apparently a blissful union until 1981, when her family fortune was wiped out. There was some minor but nasty reporting in the New York Times about her baseless accusations that he had fleeced them. It's my understanding that she and her family perished in a gas line explosion at their public housing in 1987, in Camden, New Jersey. After careful perusal of the records, I may assure with certainty that there was no offspring from this marriage. It's a credit to Bats's name that he paid for their funerals and interments. What a fine chap Bats had been, the men thought, a pure act of charity for a woman he had once loved. How noble of him. Bat's third wife remains rather familiar to us. Cedric uneasily glanced at his notes. Leighton Clarissa Grosvenor, an Englishwoman. They married in 1987 and divorced in 2000. They had no children. Prince Fayed El Bamati of the Gulf states swept her off her feet and away from Bats. Today, Queen Leighton and her husband the King control dozens of oil refineries in the Middle East, shipping ventures throughout the Mediterranean, and other enterprises. Perhaps Tom is best positioned to enlighten us further on the circumstances of their divorce, Cedric said hopefully. Tom shook his head. Bastard, Cedric thought. I see, Cedric murmured resentfully. Tom informs me. Tom shot Cedric a spiteful look that Bats swore at the time she personified the very worst of a mercenary, money-grubbing woman, and that he resolved to never make the same mistake again. And that leads me to Bats's fourth wife, from whom, I am at pains to say, he never divorced. Unease fell upon the room. Laura Cassidy Jones, Bats's fourth wife. They definitely remembered her, and that she had never changed her surname upon marriage. The circumstances of how they met remain to this day murky. On the one hand, Bats informed many of you and our other alumni that he met Laura in a fashionable private club. On the other hand, several of our wives speak of her discreetly mentioning a random encounter at some sort of, and I quote, lifestyle community. Perhaps all of us who ever met her at our annual gatherings and at other alumni events recall her dynamic energy and her formidable personality. That's an understatement, someone muttered. Most certainly not our kind of people, whispered one man to another. That damn woman. Someone else cursed. Cedric endured the rumblings and continued. They married in 2006 after a whirlwind romance. Bats was a genteel 56 and Laura, a youthful and sprightly 20 years old. Her provenance was, shall I say, unique in our experience. Bats said she had no family that he knew of and had been raised in an orphanage. Heads shook. She had attended a public school and dropped out before graduation. Several loud gasps echoed across the boardroom. She came to us, perhaps unrefined is the appropriate word, with little of the attitude and aptitude we've been accustomed to in our beloved wives. Drawing from my own few occasions to meet her at 2 or 3 alumni galas, she presented herself less as a jewel and more as an imposing granite boulder. In fairness, I confess a wee bit of admiration for her obvious mastery of skeet and target shooting, for a woman of course, and her demonstrated inclination to detect and confront disingenuous discussion when she heard it. An elderly man leapt to his feet. That bitch told my gladdies that women should be seen, and be heard. Another chap shouted from his chair, she told my daughters not to take shit from anyone. It took months of therapy to fix them. David Alistair Tonsdale, class of 96, rose to denounce the harridan as well. She argued with me against agnatic primogeniture in favour of absolute primogeniture. The boardroom boiled in thunderous disapproval of her. Quiet, please, Cedric shouted. The room soon calmed. Cedric continued. Thank you, my friends. The main points that I highlight for you are these. First, Bats and Miss Jones married in June 2006. Second, for reasons that remain unclear to us even today, even in fact to his closest friends, Bats separated from her in 2012, 13 years ago. She received custody of their only son. Bats' cryptic remarks at the time were that he wasn't, man enough for the job to raise his child. His words. Tom nudged Cedric aside and spoke. I'd be remiss if I didn't make some remarks here. Bats told me he loved his wife, but even by his standards she was a force to be reckoned with. He also told me that he had never loved any other woman as much as he had loved her. I also asked him why he hadn't requested our firm to handle the necessary separation agreements. He assured me that he thought of his family's privacy and that using our firm might have created unnecessary complications. I've been able since his death to review most of his financial records. It appears to me that Miss Jones received a lump sum of $100 million in equalization and child support expenses in lieu of ongoing payments. And now, she probably wants more. One old codger shouted, Gold digger, I knew it, shouted Clayton Jeffrey Ashton III, class of 74. Witch, yelled another, burn her, encouraged several others. Tom, Cedric and Winston waved their arms to quell the unrest. The distinguished men attending the meeting slowly sat back down. The room grew quiet again. Tom beckoned Cedric aside and loudly announced, Winston, it may be timely for you to discuss the contents of Bat's will. Winston looked up. Bat's last will was prepared by Rothstein, Rubin and Rosenstein in New York City. He asked that they forward a sealed copy of it to our office upon its execution. It's been here, sealed, since he wrote it in 2006, just after he remarried. Winston did not want to be here. I credit Rothstein, Rubin, and Rosenstein. The will is unimpeachable. Its execution was videotaped. Bats even read it aloud. In the sealed envelope, we also found 5 attestations by reputable doctors regarding Bats's knowledge, lucidity, and capacity to make the will. There's no possible way for us, or anyone for that matter, to contest the will. Silence. Winston gulped. As Tom previously mentioned, the bulk of Bats's legacy is headed to our fund, several $1 billion. However what? A man sharply asked. Money was at stake. Winston wanted to piss his pants. Might as well get it over with as fast as I can and hopefully escape unscathed, he thought. However, he named Miss Jones as his executor. He never filed for divorce, and therefore, she can legally claim half of his estate under our state's family laws. And he... Amongst the furious groans and curses, someone said, And he what? Tom looked at Winston with sympathy. Tell people the good news first, and the bad news last. You yourself pass on the good news. Always require minions like Winston to convey the bad news. Tom had once been in Winston's shoes years and years ago. Winston would one day understand why he had been put up for slaughter. Winston continued, reluctantly, and he bequeathed the academy and its 1,000 acres to Ms. Jones. Silence. A procession of limousines headed to Lake Placid. In each were lawyers from Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe. In each, memoranda of law, affidavits, land title records, conveyances, the wills of Bats's ancestors, and other relevant materials were passed back and forth. And in each, the mood was glum. Miss Jones had accepted their invitation to meet. Rothstein, Rubin, and Rosenstein had already advised her on her legal position. Nonetheless, she had refused to come to Dewey, Cheetham, and Howe's offices in the city. You come to the country. Fresh air, tall trees, the Adirondacks. You city boys should touch some grass a while. Then she hung up. In the limos, few words were spoken, Saysin. Fee simple, good habendum clause, no quitclaim, etc. Though no one said it, each Academy alumnus perfectly understood the funds and the Academy's precarious legal position. Miss Jones could truly fuck them over. The fund would not suffer any actual loss. Its betterment would simply be delayed. Bat's billions would be reduced, not eliminated under Miss Jones' 50-50 statutory claim to her deceased husband's estate. Moreover, the fund would be improved in the years to come with the passing of each alumnus and stock market profits. The Academy itself, however, was another matter. It was anchored by tradition, revived Gothic architecture, honey-coloured Cotswold stone, centuries of weathering Atlantic mist, sprawling ivy, a curated tapestry of undulating hills and ancient woodlands. The air in its great hall was thick with the scent of beeswax and old paper. Hammerbeam ceilings soared overhead. Stained glass windows cast long, kaleidoscopic shadows across oak-panelled walls. Engraved on those walls were the names of every graduate. Those walls framed hallways and classrooms in which young boys matured into young men, prepared to lead and direct on a global scale. Every Academy graduate bore 200 years of heritage and expectations upon his shoulders. And Laura Cassidy Jones, a woman, threatened its very existence. Her solution, Ms. Jones: "It is truly a pleasure to meet you once again. And Bat's country home hasn't changed much since I was last here. Oh, in 2003, said Tom smoothly. Tom Pickering, you don't seem to have changed one bit. Much of my house has changed, though, Laura said flatly. They shook hands. Come on in. She beckoned him through the front door. Tom's entourage of Elysian lawyers followed him. Her curt stop stopped them all. I invited Tom in. The rest of you can wait over there, she said, pointing at an empty field, and Tom alone followed her into the large country house. And this is my office where we'll talk. Laura entered the well-decorated room and sat in a chair in front of a resolute desk. Tom paused in the doorway. His brief tour of the house had conveyed to him that 1. Laura Cassidy Jones had taste, indeed, better taste than Bats had had, and 2. Laura Cassidy Jones did not mince words. Her simple yet tasteful office conveyed the same. Don't just stand there. Please sit. Tom sat. Cut to the chase, please. I'm off to a bake sale in 1 hour at the community centre. Right, thought Tom. She's a force to be reckoned with. He pushed away his few doubts about his, the Academy's, and the fund's prospects, and proceeded to lay out his initial negotiating position, eventually concluding with, and to a trust established in your name, Laura. Laura threw her head back and laughed openly at him. Tom, I've been around enough lawyers, business people, bankers, and accountants in my life to know that your position is shit. I've frankly got you and your famous alumni. She pretentiously waved her hands around the air by the hairy balls. I can fuck all of you over big time. Tom accepted the defeat of Plan A. He then offered Laura Plan B unsuccessfully. Plan C ditto. Within 30 minutes, he saw doom looming. It shook him. Elysian men don't get defeated. Academy graduates never fail to achieve their aims. Centuries of victories and accomplishments, all in the name of stability, control, subtlety, all this was now imperiled. In a flash of inspiration derived less from conventional wisdom and more from fear, he suddenly thought, maybe, welcoming would be better than offering. Laura, what do you want? Finally, she roared with laughter. An Elysian man is asking, no, begging a woman to tell him what she wants. Mark this date in your calendar. You'll remember it for the rest of your life, Tom. His head fell forward. His shoulders sagged. His body went limp. Name your terms. A Cheshire cat grin briefly broke over her face. Its insincerity and mischievousness were self-evident. It quickly vanished, replaced by a sympathetic look. Tom Bats loved me, and I loved him. I loved him because, under his veneer of respectability and smug self-assurance, he was a little boy, emotionally stunted, devoid of empathy, incapable of reaching beyond the tight, rigid constraints of his upbringing. He, I assure you, loved me, because I opened his eyes to a world beyond his narrow vision. First with fear, then with hesitation, and finally with aplomb, he grew into be a better man, one who relished opportunity and adventure. She shrugged her shoulders. Well, adventure within limits, of course. Yet when push came to shove, he realized his own limitations and that he could not, despite his best efforts, ever overcome them. He blamed his academy years and culture for his failings. So, we parted ways. On friendly terms. He left me alone but never failed to assist me whenever I asked for his assistance. Laura paused, rose, went to her desk, and pressed a button. A maid soon appeared. "Mary, could you please get me a cup of coffee?" "Tom, please," with a shot of Grand Marnier in it. Laura laughed. Mary left and soon reappeared. "Thank you, Mary." "Tom, here." "Oh, and Mary, please ask Jim to have the car ready in 30 minutes to head out to the community centre." "Yes, Laura." And the maid left. Mary and Jim are married and live in the small cottage you passed on the way in. They've been with me since Bats gave me the house. They're great people, Tom, great people. Ordinary people. Laura sat. "Anyway, Bats left me well off. I've settled in here. I have a life here. I don't want to entangle it in global affairs." She pretentiously waved her hands around the air again, mucking him again. "So here's what I propose. First, the fund gets its legacy under Bats's will." Tom's expression was saturnine, but he rejoiced. "Second, I'll decline my statutory entitlements. Bats left me well off, as I said. I don't need the money and all the nonsense that goes with it." Tom's expression was saturnine, he couldn't believe his luck. "Third, I'm keeping the academy." Tom's heart sank. "Pfft, I know you and your ilk better than that. You're wondering how horribly I'll ruin it. Let me tell you, and let me assuage your worries. 000. That academy is going to start by enrolling your daughters. All of them. I want 50-50 enrollment. I know how valuable the connections made at school are for you boys. Now I want those same connections and possibilities for us girls. CEOs, CFOs, business, banking, seats in the Senate and House, seats on the courts, I want girls to have them too. Starting this coming semester. This is a one-time offer. Say yes or no. I'll give you 1 minute. Pause. She sipped her coffee. "Her gun to his head," Tom said. Agreed, Laura. His 15-year-old daughter, Catherine, would cheer at the news. His wife wouldn't. Well, not outwardly, of course. Excellent. I knew we could work together. Now, the next thing is social development. I have some ideas about the fund's expenditures. And Laura rambled on. Tom took it in. The fund would still be there. It would still possess influence, albeit less abundantly. It could survive. Tom sighed. Agreed, Laura. On and on it went, Laura stating and Tom agreeing. Eventually, Tom, 2 last things. The first is, I'll be frank with you, it's a big one. None of my concessions will take effect within the next 5 years. Hell, all the audits will take at least that long. As the executor of Bats's estate, I'll be constantly invigilating your efforts and those of the Academy and the fund to fulfill our agreement. Should you succeed in your part of the bargain, then I'll keep mine. Fail? Then I'll take my half. Rothstein, Rubin and Rosenstein will be acting on my behalf pursuant to my instructions. You fuck with them, you fuck with me. And I swear I will fuck all of you boys in consequence one by one. No problem. What's the second? You may recall that Bats and I had a child. I do. Bartholomew Alexander Sterling VIII. He should be about 17 or so by now. You want him enrolled in the academy? That's not an issue. I can guarantee his enrollment. I'm glad you said that you'll enroll my Alex. As forceful as I may seem to you, I've doted kindly on my Alex. Within boundaries needless to say. Sports chosen, hobbies pursued, studies enjoyed. I've never imposed myself upon the path your so-called God chose for the beautiful creation Bats and I were blessed with. Alex has walked Alex's path. God's will is essential to all students at the Academy, Laura. Spare me your sanctimony. Nearly all of you cheat on your wives, business partners, and employees. God is a nominal guiding force in your mindset, but I'm going to make it a tangible one. Bats failed when his God tested him. He knew he failed, and he never forgave himself. Tom, you shall not fail. You must not fail. If one bad thing happens to my Alex at my academy, I will crucify you. All of you. Then I'll burn the fucking place down. Do you understand me? Yes, Laura. Pardon? A bit of formalities required now. Tom hated himself for what he was about to say, but he said it anyway. Yes, Miss Jones. Much better, Tommy boy. Much, much better. Tom saw a fleeting glimpse of that damn Cheshire cat grin again. Would you like to meet the Academy's newest student? Tom cheered up. All in all, he knew he could sell the deal to those who mattered, although it would take effort and all his persuasive powers. The more he considered it, the more his confidence soared. The Academy would survive. The fund would survive. Heck, his daughters might even enjoy a more substantial future than that which he and his wife could offer them before today. Moreover, the possibility of arranged marriages beckoned lucrative deals. Everything would fall into place and be just fine. Yes, please, I'd love to. Laura grinned in victory. Alex, could you come here for a minute, please? There was scampering around upstairs, footsteps on the stairs, footsteps in the hallway. Finally, a teen appeared at the doorway. What's up, Mummy?